Thanks very much for having me, first of all. My talk is on the blurred line between websites and web apps, or as I call it, justifying what I do. So a little bit about myself. My name is Robert James Gabriel. My full name is actually quite longer, but ask me about that later. I'm 23. I'm a software engineer at Teamwork. I pick tabs over spaces. My GitHub and Twitter account, if you want to follow me, is Robert J. Gabriel. My favorite particular area in the computer science field is web apps and performance and machine learning. And my website, where all these slides and blog posts will be up after, is robertgabriel.ninja. Yeah, it was like €5 a few years ago. So Alex Russell is the technical lead at Google on this term for progressive web apps. I'm not sure if everyone is familiar, but if you watched Google I/O, you see it was a big topic. So the idea is you take the best of the web and give it the best of the native applications. Facebook kind of tried to do this a few years ago with their hybrid, but it didn't really work. But 2017 is different. So in progressive web apps, it blurs the line between web content and apps. So if you have a well-made website, it can become an app in a matter of a few seconds, and I'll show you how. So for a progressive web app, it has to be reliable, fast, and engaging. So it's the same with a website. It has to, with a progressive web app, it can load even offline. So if a user goes on, and fast, it has to be quick interactions like a good, well-designed app, and engaging. It's natural, and you don't feel out of place when you use it. So some of the other characteristics are progressive, responsive, connective, independent. It's app-like, it's fresh state, it's discoverable, it's installable and linkable. Again, any well-designed website and any well-designed app should be integratable, and you shouldn't see a blurred difference. And there'll be an example there in a second. So at Teamwork, we were recently rebuilding one of our sites, and we treated it as a web app. So to create a progressive web app, you create a manifest file, and you put it on top of your header content on your HTML. So for here, it's a very short one. Ask me about this later, but we just say it's like teamwork.com, the background colors, what scope it has access to, and the start URL. So if a user comes onto the site more than twice and has an engagement rate of like 40%, it'll ask them, do you want to install it to their desktop? So you can see here, I have a link, and I click on it, and it opens up our website, which you can log into then. 2 seconds. I think it's after freezing a small bit. There we go. So very good examples is the Twitter redesign that happened, I think yesterday, rolled out fully. That's actually a progressive web app. So the iOS version and the web version are more or less the same now, and take advantage of the desktop power as well. So you can have it installed on your phone. You'll have the same experience as the web content as the app. Code.NASA is the same. Telegram is actually built using this throughout the board, and they use the Electron to just bundle it locally. And Polymer, I don't know if anyone's used any of these apps, but if you look them up after, they're exactly the same concept. So with progressive web apps, they're like best friend or service workers, and you can get some real advantages out of this. So a service worker is a background asynchronous thread that you can, on your website, you can use to fetch stuff and do push notifications. Sorry if I'm rushing this, 10 minutes is quite short. So in short, most browsers support it besides Safari, which it's under construction at the moment, but we won't see it for another 2 or 3 versions being realistic. But as you can see, the planets in the background do. So what a service worker does essentially is in your manifest file, if you have one, it'll install it. If it doesn't, if there's an error, it'll error out. It's a silent error, so the user won't see it and won't affect your web app. But if you do get one activated, it can fetch stuff that's already been loaded beforehand. An example of this is, say, the CSS file. If it's a CSS file against every page, it doesn't need to reload it from the network, and it saves on rendering speeds and load speeds. And it's idle, so it doesn't actually activate until you need it, so there's no extra usage on your performance on your machine or on your device. So very good examples is page load, registers the service worker, downloads the assets from the network. Here, same thing again, that should be the cached icon. It loads here, loads it from cache and not going to the network. Up here, it checks, does it have it in the cache? If it doesn't have that assets in the cache, it loads it from the network and back onto the page and then registers in the service worker. So next time you come along, it checks off the service worker, is it in cache? If it's not on both, it will just reload it from the network again. So basically, to have a progressive web app, you need to have 13 things more or less. It has to be a secure link. it's under construction in Edge. It's not anymore. Safari, not anymore. It's only activated once, so you can't have multiple service worker for the same domain. It has to be on the same origin, so you can't have, say, www2.teamwork.com and www.teamwork.com. It has control escapes, so wherever you have it in your file, so if you put in the JavaScript file, it can't access the CSS, so you have to have it on the base one. It should be progressive, so you have to have the manifest and meet a minimum standard. Again, if you want more detail, you can check my website, it's all there. It runs in the background on a separate thread. It doesn't have access to the page DOM, so this is more just for fetching and pushing notifications. So if you register a new service worker, you have to close, all other tabs have to be closed before I can register a new one. As you can see here on this part what everyone's more interested in, you can see here I turn off the internet and reload the page, and it seems like it's native and it's like it's an actual app. So the benefit of that is if someone's checking out your website and then their connection goes or your connection goes, they still have a fully functional one, and the service worker will kick back in once you have internet connection, and it's seamless and you won't even know. So if it goes over, say, 10 seconds, you could have like a pop-up saying, hey, your connection's gone wrong or something. Please try again later. A lot better experience, and it builds a trust with the user. Again, it's after free. Oh, there we go. So you can see here some of the benefits. So before, we made 106 requests and transferred 3.0 megabytes, and the DOM loaded in about 1 second, and it was fully loaded in about 2 seconds. And then after the service worker, we actually made more requests and only transferred 166 kilobytes and loaded in 421 milliseconds, and the whole thing loaded in about 1 second. So it's half the time, a lot quicker and a lot less resources. So a good way to test that is your site or app progressive is just this thing called Lighthouse, which is an open source project by Google. Essentially what it runs is a bunch of tests to make sure your coding standards are up to standard, that you're using correct JavaScript classes, that your CSS is right, your UX is correct, like such as contrast and colors. All this is the standard for making a progressive app, which is in turn makes it a better usability for your website and app, so the customers are more engaged. Yeah, if you check on lighthouse.google.com, it's all there. Basically how it works is on your command line or in the Chrome extension, it runs a set of a bunch of tests, sends them off to the audit, then it categorizes them under performance, best practices, how progressive it is, and it gives you suggestions and tips on how to fix it. So, and in terms of anyone here who's in marketing, the better you have this, the better you rank in SEO at this stage. Because SEO has changed from kind of content, which is about, people could argue with me on this, but it's about 40% now for the content and 60% for the actual like networking and technical part of it, because at this stage, they bump up people for secure sites and stuff like that. So what it actually tests for, I'm going to go just way more, but page load performance is fast. It avoids console time. It uses HTTPS. It uses progressive listeners to improve scrolls performance. It avoids web SQL. Buttons have accessibility names, and avoids old CSS or bad practices about your JavaScript, HTML, and CSS. So this is the meat and potatoes, really. Initially, this was before and after. That performance score was, I think, 12. So after we ran all the progressive and rebuilt the site, we got it up to this one, which is 100, which across the board is way faster. It's instant. And if anyone wants to see it, talk to me after, and I can show you demos on multiple devices and stuff like that, because I'm not sure, am I supposed to give the URL? So I'm talking a load of shit. Sorry for language. But there's actual multiple use cases of this actually working from an e-commerce point of view and from a website point of view. Joomla saw an increase of 33% in conversion rates, and 12 times more users on Progressive were more engaging. Another good example is Uber Eats. They found out that having the notification, do you want to install the app locally, after you did the first checkout, increased their revenue by 40%. A small little thing, because their app was well built as a website, and the same with Airbnb. If any of you use Airbnb now, they do the same thing. So after you do your first check-in, they'll ask, do you want to install it locally? Again, I'm not sure how much time I have left, so perfect. So we actually created a boilerplate that'll be up later for anyone who wants. We took care of all the hard work. So it's on Teamwork's GitHub. I'll trigger it public there in a few minutes. So if you want to take that and put it into your app, we've taken care of all the hard work, and there's a step-by-step how to do it. That's it.